East Asia, housing three of the world's largest economies and most influential nations, China, Japan, and South Korea, as well as Hong Kong, Mongolia, North Korea, and Taiwan. East Asia is a vital center of gravity in the Asia-Pacific. East Asia's economic development has transformed the economic and strategic dynamic beyond Asia, as well boosting growth and trade across the globe, at the same time fostering historical disagreements, long-standing instability on the Korean Peninsula, enduring maritime disputes, and China's growing military power raise a number of security concerns for the region and the world. East Asia is a region of great global significance, currently accounting for around 30% of the global economy by most measures, for example, production, trade, investment, and finance. China has unswervingly pursued an independent foreign policy of peace. The basic objectives of the policy center on safeguarding national independence and state sovereignty and creating an international environment favorable to its reform, opening and modernization efforts, as well as maintaining world peace and promoting common development. The policy is based on the following main elements: maintaining independence, maintaining world peace, friendly relations and cooperation, good neighborly and friendly relations, enhance unity and cooperation with developing countries, and lastly, opening policy. The three pillars of Chinese foreign policy: the state, the party, and the people. The aim of the Chinese foreign policy is to help secure and legitimize one-party rule in China. We have three leading institutions to promote that goal: the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or MFA, the International License Department, ILD, and the United Frontwork Department, UFWD. Prior to the initiation of economic reforms and trade liberalization, nearly 40 years ago, China maintained policies that kept the economy very poor, stagnant, centrally controlled, vastly inefficient, and relatively isolated from the global economy. Since opening to the foreign trade and investment and implementing free market reforms in 1979, China has been among the world's fastest growing economies with real and while gross domestic product growth averaging 9.5% to 2018, a pace described by the World Bank as the fastest sustained expansion by a major economy in history. Such growth has enabled China on average to double its GDP every 8 years and helped raise an estimated 800 million people out of poverty. China has become the world's largest economy, manufacturer, merchandise trader, and holder of foreign exchange reserves. This in turn made China a major commercial partner of the United States. China is the largest U.S. merchandise trading partner, biggest source of imports, and third largest U.S. export market. China is also the largest foreign holder of U.S. Treasury securities, which help fund the federal debt and keep U.S. interest rate low. Japan has three basic foreign policy. The first foreign policy of Japan is foreign policy as a member of the West. Japan shares the basic values of freedom and democracy with other industrialized democracies. Japan and these nations have common interests in maintaining and developing the free trade and market economy system. It is Japan's basic foreign policy to maintain strong solidarity and close cooperation with these Western democracies on a broad range of international, political, and economic field. The second policy is the democracy grounded on the Asia-Pacific region. In recent years, the Asia-Pacific region has excavated more great possibilities for growth and development. Stability and prosperity in this area is of vital importance to the peace and prosperity of this country. Japan must contribute to peace and development in Asia and the Pacific region by ascertaining the hearts and minds and winning the confidence of its neighbors and other countries in the region. Thus, promoting friendly relationship with them, this is also a way to secure its own peace and security. Japan and Asia-Pacific nations maintain the friendliest nations in their history. The third policy, broad-based and multifaceted, Japanese foreign policy, as stated above, is based on the Asia-Pacific region. Also, Japan is a member of the West at the same time. However, Japan must like it or not conduct its foreign policy from a global point of view in all of the political, security, economic, and cultural areas. This is inevitable in the light of the changes in the international situation and the growth of Japanese national strength. The economic policy goals of a 2% annual inflation rate and concomitant increases in inflation expectations remain elusive. In May 2019, the Bank of Japan trimmed its 2020 inflation target and hinted that it would not hesitate to take additional easing measures if the economic situation worsened. Despite consistent government and central bank activity, and despite the presence of the significant corporate cash holdings deriving from retained profits, consumption and domestic investment rates remain sluggish. Compensating for the negative effect of an aging and shrinking workforce has proven to be extremely challenging. The initiation of the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Free Trade Agreement with the EU in 2019 may be interpreted as positive signals. South Korea foreign policy foundations are sound, but the country should manage potential domestic contracts, including the National Assembly, bureaucratic interest, public opinion, and the country's constitution. 8 foreign policies. Number 1. Coping with the deepening strategic consequence of the North Koreans' increasingly robust nuclear weapons capability. Number 2. Overcoming major hurdles in the ROK-US alliance. Number 3. Parallel management of these critical ties with China and Japan. Number 4. Ensuring economic competitiveness just as South Korea enters a period of much lower growth and belonging social welfare spending. Number 5. Fulfilling its responsibilities for the global commons, including enhanced commitments to foreign aid, peacekeeping operations, and human rights campaigns. Number 6. Development cooperation. Number 7. Green growth, climate change, and energy. Number 8. The trust policy. With the government focusing on job creation and welfare expansion, South Korea falls into the upper middle ranks or in the 14th ranks with regard to economic policy. Its score in this measure has declined by 0.1 point relative to 2014. While growth rates have been moderate and stable, in a recent year rate declined to 2.7% in 2018. Current account surpluses have been high. The central bank supported the fiscal expansion to the interest rate cuts. The minimum wage has increased by nearly 11%, but the government has promised to limit the future increases. General deployment rates remain very low and stable at just 3.1%, but the youth unemployment rate is considerably higher. The Moon government had sought to reduce share of non-regular jobs. However, the number of non-regular workers in fact increased in 2019, hitting the record of 36 of salaried workers. North Korea's command centralized economy. The state controls all means of production, and the government sets priorities and emphasis in economic development. Since 1954, economic policy has been promulgated through a series of national economic plans. The early plans gave high priority to post-war construction and the development of heavy industries, especially chemicals and metals. Subsequent plans focused on resource exploitation and improving technology, mechanization, and infrastructure. Little attention was given to agriculture until 1970s, and it was not until the late 1980s that much effort was made to improve the quality and quantity of consumer goods. North Korea's economic goals have always been linked to the general government policy of self-reliance. The country shunned foreign investment, although it accepted considerable economic aid from the Soviet Union and its satellite Eastern European countries, as well as from China. Despite its stated policy of self-reliance, North Korea routinely found it necessary to import such essentials commodities as fuels and machinery, as well as grain. North Korea's foreign relations are shaped by a mixture of historical, nationalistic, ideological, and pragmatic considerations. The territorial division of the peninsula looms large in the political thinking of North Korean leaders and is a driving force in their management of internal and external affairs. Over the centuries, unequal relations, foreign depredation, dependence on foreigners for assorted favors, and the emulation of foreign cultures and institutions are less the exception than the rule in Korea's relationship with the outside world. These patterns give rise to the widely shared assumption among Koreans that their capacity to control their national destiny is limited by geopolitical constraints. The National Security Law, or NSL, for Hong Kong was passed unanimously by Beijing's National People's Congress Standing Committee on 30 June 2020 and came into effect in Hong Kong on July 1, 2020. The NSL establishes new security institutions in Hong Kong and creates 4 new criminal offenses: succession, subversion, terrorist activities, and collusion with a foreign country or external elements to endanger national security. The NSL allows some cases to be remanded to the courts of the PRC rather than Hong Kong's separate common law judicial system, and includes extraterritorial provisions under which any person in any country could be held liable for NSL offenses. Since its introduction, the NSL has been applied broadly by local authorities and has enabled crackdowns on political opposition and news media critical of the government. The economy of Hong Kong is a highly developed free market economy. It is characterized by low taxation, almost free port trade, and a well-established international financial market. Within the public sector, institutional factors such as sound and transparent legal system, independent judiciary, neutrality of the civil service, free flow of information, and small and efficient administration have contributed toward creating atmosphere conducive to steady economic expansion. Equally important have been Hong Kong's predominantly rules-based economic policies and firm regulatory framework. Consistent with a non-interventionist approach, the authorities have maintained a coherent set of fiscal, monetary, and exchange policies that have helped limit the size of the public sector to under 20% of GDP and have preserved the flexibility of factors and good markets. Fiscal policy has traditionally aimed at maintaining a simple and stable tax system with low tax rates, limiting current spending increases in line with GDP growth, while providing adequate funding for infrastructure projects and keeping sufficient reserves to deal with contingencies. The authorities have refrained from the use of fiscal subsidies or preferential tax treatment to promote particular sectors or industries. In addition, social welfare benefits have been narrowly targeted, and labor market policies have focused on providing assistance for retraining rather than for unemployment insurance. However, the authorities have also had a substantial involvement in sectors such as public housing and port and airport development, and through the release of land for development. The goal of Mongolia's foreign policy is to strengthen the country's independence and sovereignty by maintaining friendly relations with the rest of the world, developing political, economic, and other relations and cooperation, strengthening its position in the international community, and accelerating development. Mongolia's foreign policy consists of interrelated main components: politics, economy, science and technology, culture, humanitarian foreign policy, protection of the interests of citizens abroad, foreign propaganda, and public relations policy. Policy reforms corresponding to project guidance enjoyed an unusual degree of ownership in the government and more broadly in Mongolia's policy, which proved critical to their adoption. Economic Policy Support Project, or EPSP, combined flexibility in responding to government requests for assistance with a steady commitment to an underlying policy agenda aimed at building a functioning and competitive market economy. EPSP assistance was demand-driven, but the demands flowed from a strategic appraisal of needs and options undertaken jointly by the government and project advisors. These demands reflected the nations as it sought to cope with emergencies and lay the foundations for a successful transition to a market economy. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of China, Taiwan, is responsible for the nation's diplomacy and foreign relations. Article 141 of the ROC Constitution states that the foreign policy of the Republic of China shall, in a spirit of independence and initiative, and on the basis of the principles of equality and reciprocity, cultivate harmonious relations with other nations, and respect treaties and charter of the United Nations, in order to protect the rights and interests of overseas compatriots, promote international cooperation, advance international justice, and ensure world peace. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs defends the sovereignty and the national interest in accordance with the Constitution. It also works in full speed in implementing foreign policies that enhance Taiwan's prosperity and promoting foreign relations that strengthen its international status. The Republic of China, Taiwan is persistent in realizing its steadfast diplomacy that aims at mutual benefit and peace, creating sustainable partnerships with diplomatic allies and strengthening substantive ties in multiple fields with friendly and like-minded countries. Taiwan actively engages the world, continuously strives for international participation, and makes affluent contributions to the international community. Taiwan also exerts its soft power and through means of international cooperation and humanitarian aids, elevates its excellent profile in the international arena, and manifests itself as a true force for good in the world. Since May 2016, Taiwan has adopted the new model for economic development. It seeks to boost growth by promoting innovation, increasing employment, and ensuring equitable distribution of economic benefits. Under the model, Taiwan is striving to strengthen global and regional connections through initiatives such as the New Southbound Policy, which aims to diversify the nation's international markets by expanding links with ASEAN member states, as well as South Asia, Australia, and New Zealand. Taiwan will continue promoting its participation in regional and global economic integration processes. To boost domestic investment and enhance the nation's global competitiveness, the new model for economic development prioritizes the promotion of 6 core strategic industries. These comprise information and digital technology, cybersecurity, biotech and medical technology, national defense, green and renewable energy, and strategic stockpile industries. Through proactive policy built on the foundations of the 5+2 Innovative Industries Initiative, Taiwan will gain first-mover advantage, helping solidify the country's key position in global supply chains in the post-pandemic era. These countries have been propelled by strategies of development and the ways they sequence and use their policies in the various countries in the region, which translate to success in these individual countries.